Hello everybody and welcome to my video on the upcoming class changes in the Dragonhold patch. There's quite a few changes going into this patch and I'm going to detail all of the class changes in this video. If you guys are interested in checking out the new sets or the weapon skill lines and general combat changes, I will be uploading those videos shortly for you guys, so be sure to check them out on my channel. If this video is about a day or more older, they should definitely be there. All in all, I actually really liked what ZeniMax did with the classes this patch, but there's one big sore spot that I have for just class and just weapon combat is that we still have the cast time on ultimates. ZeniMax did a good job addressing a lot of the issues that I think we had in the Scalebreaker patch, but the cast time on ultimate is just not the right fix, I think, for ultimates. I think that I would love to see ZeniMax take a different approach to reworking single target burst ultimates, and adding a cast time is just not the way to do it because it really interrupts that kind of fluid gameplay that we kind of have in ESO right now. So I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on that. Without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start with Necromancer, and Necromancer, surprisingly, actually got a few nerfs this patch, and Necromancer actually felt really good last patch, especially during the dot meta. If you had enough hit point recovery or healing over time on your Necro, you could actually counter the dot meta fairly well on it. But with the changes to dots this patch, well, Necro actually got some nerfs and stuff too. We'll see how it goes. Boneyard increase the base cost of this ability to 5k magicka. That is so expensive, but decrease the damage per tick by approximately 33%. So we'll see a little damage decrease there. The Frozen Colossus will now only apply the major vulnerability to enemies hit by the final smash. This is a huge change for this ability because most of the time in PvP, the final smash does not hit your target. So I think that this is a big deal, not only for that reason, because you likely won't be applying major vulnerability in PvP anymore to a faster target, but on top of it, the initial 2 smashes will not deal as much damage. Your Blast Bone Explosion that goes in with that combo will not deal as much damage either. So this entire combo should deal significantly less damage than it does on the live server now, just because of this major vulnerability change, at least in PvP. And for PvE DPS, you should see a decrease in the overall DPS given from this ultimate. Honestly, if I was ZeniMax, I would make it apply the vulnerability on the first hit. I think that's way more practical and feasible. Or just on all hits still. That's what makes this ultimate good. If they take this away, which they kind of just have, I don't think this is going to be a very good ultimate anymore. I'm not going to lie. So we'll see how it goes. It'll be too expensive for the amount of AoE pressure that it provides, making something like the Destro ult just a better and more feasible option that will land on your target more effectively anyway. Now, moving on to the next ability, we've got Shocking Siphon. Decrease the damage per tick of this ability, and its morphs by 33%. This is totally appropriate, I think, to see the Shocking Siphon morph decreased in damage by 33%. It was very high last patch. It's supposed to be a really strong dot still, but this 30% value is what I kind of wanted to see from dots this patch. So the Skeletal Mage, they've decreased the damage per hit of this ability and its morphs by 50%. It got a massive buff in the Scalebreaker patch, so I think the damage of this ability will be a lot more similar to where it was in Elsewhere, which in my opinion might have been on the too low side. I think a 50% damage cut to some of these damage over time effects, which the Skeletal Mage and the Archer essentially are kind of like dots. They're direct damage dots. It's just a different kind of classification, but it works in kind of the same way. But, the issue here is that I think they've gone and over-nerfed some of these dots, and the Skeletal Mage is one of them. I don't think it should have been decreased by this much. Like, yeah, the dot meta was a problem, but, they didn't have to nerf some of these dots as hard as they did. And I'm going to talk about the ones that I don't think should have gotten nerfed as hard. I think this should be at 33%, similar to the Shocking Siphon. Now, looking at the Dragonknight, guys, Ardent Flame, Fiery Breath. This ability and its morphs now last 10 seconds, up from 8 seconds. They increased the cost to 3,510, which I think is good because that was fairly cheap for an AoE, and they reduced the damage per tick of the damage over time portion of this ability by 47%. Another 50% damage nerf. We'll see how this plays out. The upfront damage from this ability, like the initial attack on it, is actually pretty strong, so Fiery Breath might be one of them that can take such a heavy dot nerf, but Like I said, I think the 30% range to 35% range would be a little bit more appropriate. But we'll see when we play a bit on the PTS, and of course when this hits the live server, because we know ZeniMax isn't going to make a lot of changes past this point for this patch. It's just kind of how they do it. They'll make little tweaks from this point on. The Morph's bonus flame damage now scales off your spell damage 1% for every 3/3/3 spell damage you have, up to a maximum of the original 10%. So this kind of changes how you want to build a Magicka Dragonknight if you want to build it around this skill, but I like this. I like this change here. A little bit more damage on the Engulfing Flames morph. Now, Searing Strike, this ability in its morphs now lasts 10 seconds, up from 8 seconds. They increased the base cost to 2,970, so a big cost increased as well. And the ability in its morphs have now gained the functionality of immediately applying their respective status effect to the enemy upon cast. So I'm going to assume that the first dot tick is immediate. So the initial burst from this ability should be a little bit more upfront. The damage over time has been reduced by 60%. That's a massive cut, but I think this cut is so much higher than the others because it actually adds an extra tick if it immediately applies the respective effect. So, you know, we should see a bigger decrease to this one versus the other dots. But 60%, man. For this one, I would say maybe in the range of 35 to 40%. But, you know, this is my personal opinion. Like I said, I have to go test it myself. Just from what I saw in Scalebreaker, the increased cost here and the decreased effectiveness by this amount, I don't know. This might just nerf this skill too hard. So we'll see how it plays out. Earthen Heart, Molten Weapons. This ability now grants Major Brutality and Sorcery at base. The Igneous Weapon morph now gives you increased duration to 42 seconds, and the other morph will still give you that heavy attack bonus. I really like this. It gives you the option to play that heavy attack stamina Dragonknight without having to slot the extra skill for the Brutality. I really like this. I don't even know what to say. Yeah, really nice. Now, this is something that we've seen a lot of with class skills that give either Major Brutality or Sorcery. They've been normalized this patch to grant both. But things like the two-handed Rally will still only give you the Brutality, for example. So the class skills, though, they seem to have gotten this change. Now, Stone Fist has been reworked, and rejoice, Dragonknights, because you now have your Stamina Whip. It's just not whip, it's a fist, which I guess makes more sense. It now deals physical damage with a reduced range of 15 meters down from 28. So I understand this, the reduced range, because it's now a spammable, and we'll see what the tooltip looks like when we get on the PTS, but it's 66% damage increase. I feel like this is going to be a strong tooltip. I feel like this is going to be a strong spammable for the Stamina Dragonknight. Now, this ability will no longer stun the target outright, but apply a stack of stagger to the enemy, and after 5 stacks, the enemy will be stunned by the next Stone Fist cast at them, including from other Dragonites. If the target was stunned, all staggers are removed. 5 might be too much, to be perfectly honest. 5 stacks is a lot. And, you know, it depends how this goes, but through the course of a fight, if you're spamming one ability 5 times, and then the 6th one is the stun, yeah, you've long missed your window for that kill if you wanted to land that stun effectively. So that's all I can say. I think 2 or 3 stacks would be way more feasible, but we'll see how it goes. They reduced the cost of the ability to 3,443 from 4K, which makes sense because it's now a spammable, so they want to make it more spammable. Stone Giant, this morph no longer grants the minor resolve after casting, but instead enhances the stagger mechanic, where effective enemies take 25 extra damage from any attack per stack. This effect cannot stack from multiple sources. So this makes it a decent option if you go this morph. 25 extra damage is not a lot. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, kind of a little weird here. Honestly, I like the fact that they get the spammable, but this morph is a little strange. The stagger mechanic I don't think is going to be super usable in PvP, but we'll just see. I think we might see a lot of DKs just choosing to spam this skill, but like, don't take my word for it or anything, but if you're just spamming one skill over and over, you're probably not killing anything. Now, the Obsidian Shard morph is still going to be focused as a healing ability, a little bit of an increase to the heal that it does, and it now deals fire damage instead of magic damage and heals 2 friendly targets up from 1. So it's kind of a Magicka morph now here, and it heals friendly targets. So there you go. I'm not sure if this still applies the stagger, though. This might still apply the stagger and still allow you to stun them, in which case the 5 stacks make a lot more sense because this is a heal, and you do want to spam heals if you're a healer. Looking at Nightblade, We've got Assassination, a Teleport Strike change. Lotus Fan now lasts for 10 seconds. The damage over time decreased drastically by 47%. Like I said, bit of a harsh decrease for the dots again. The minor vulnerability will now apply to all enemies hit now. So that's actually really cool. AoE minor vulnerability is unheard of, I think. I don't think that exists in the game. So very cool for that reason. We'll see how that guy plays out too. But I do like this change just to give Magicka Nightblade a little bit more AoE potential. Now taking a look at the Summon Shade, they decrease the damage of this ability and the Shadow Image morph by 42% per hit. So a big decrease on the pet damage yet again. Fixed an issue where the animations from this ability and its morphs were heavily desynced from their animations. Thank you. Shadow Image, the teleport for this morph is now 22 meters, down from 28. And this is a big change for PvP. This is a really good kite skill. Taking 6 meters off of it, that's a pretty big reduction to the amount of range you have to use this skill. So for seasoned users of this skill, you're going to have to adjust to this range reduction. I honestly don't like this change. If you want my personal opinion, no range. No range on the teleport. If you can move fast enough, you can teleport back to it. No range on the teleport, but make it last only for like 10 seconds or something. That would be cool. But, well, maybe 10 seconds isn't enough. But you know what I mean. I don't like the range restriction in general. But yeah. Moving on to the Dark Shade morph. Decrease the damage per hit of Dark Shade by approximately 15%. Increase the radius of the area attack to 6 meters. And the area attack is now on a set timer instead of chance. So just a little bit of a damage reduction and rework of this here, but not anything too huge. Twisting Pass, they decrease the damage per tick of this morph and its abilities by 33%. This is where I would have put the value at myself, I think. So this is a little bit more appropriate than some of the other dot nerfs. Siphoning, Cripple, they decrease the damage per tick of this ability and its morphs by 50%. Again, a massive cut to this ability. Drain Power, this ability and its morphs now grant Major Brutality and Sorcery at base. I really like this change again because now we don't have to pick a specific morph. We just get both buffs from the class skill there, which is really nice. The Power Extraction will now also reduce your opponent's spell damage. So that's kind of the added effect there because we get the Brutality already. Soul Shred, this morph also heals you for half the damage dealt upon the initial hit in order to help increase the defensive nature of the skill when you successfully cast it. For the Soul Tether morph, this is huge, man. Soul Tether already has great healing when you use it as a burst ult, but this is pretty much a guaranteed full heal if you hit 2 people now, assuming you have some decent firepower. This is going to be a massive heal now. Really nice stuff. So the Sorcerer got some changes as well, and the big changes for Sorc were kind of to streak and stuff, but we'll get there. Charged Lightning, fix an issue. Oh. So the Unstable Familiar, they reduce the damage of this ability and its morph's basic attacks by 17%. So not a huge damage cut to the Familiar's damage, which is kind of strange. Honestly, some of these values are all over the place. Like I said, we'll get on the PTS to see how normalized they are. Just everything's been all over the place in the past couple patches. ZeniMax has been throwing some huge values for those percentages. So we'll have to get on to see what Sorc pets are doing. Increase the cost of the special activate to 4,500. This is a huge cost increase. The duration has been increased as well, though. But the base cost... The duration has been increased as well, though, so, you know, but still, that's a huge cost increase. The stun off of this Familiar is actually really strong, so I think this is actually warranted, to be honest. Now, the Unstable Clan Fear, this morph now scales off your max stam rather than Magicka. Praise the heavens. I really like this change. Now, Stamina Sorcerer actually has a viable damage pet. Decrease the cost of the special activate to 4,500. Okay, so just kind of normalizing that. The area of effect now deals the same damage as the basic attack, but hits in a 6-meter radius up from 5. So not really super huge changes here other than the scaling. And the scaling is something that's pretty important. Yeah, viable stam pet now. I really like this. I really like this. Now, the Winged Twilight, they increase the heal of this ability and the Twilight Matriarch to closer match the Power of Rush Ceremony. An 87% increase in heal for the base. And 57% increase for healing on the Matriarch. Wow, man. This is going to be a really strong heal. We'll see how this plays out. Because Sorc has such a strong damage shield, this might be a little bit much. But Templar has Eclipse Bubble and stuff now, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. But this is going to be a very strong heal off the Twilight now. Now, the big change to Sorc, guys, Bolt Escape. The fatigue from this ability and its morphs now only apply if you successfully teleport 1 meter or more instead of whenever you activate the ability. I really like this change right off the bat. So it means if your streak doesn't work for you, you don't get the fatigue application. And the fatigue application is only really there to prevent Sorks from moving really quickly, really fast. So yeah, I like this change a lot because now you can actually just like sit next to a wall and streak and still use it as a stun and not worry about charging your resources like crazy. This ability and the Ball of Lightning morph no longer stun targets in a 4-meter radius from your origin, but instead stun targets in a 6-meter radius from your final location. Big change here to this, and I really like this. So this makes it this essentially makes it much harder for a Sork to aim their streak at a target. Instead of streak just being a really easy stun when someone's on top of you, it's not going to function that way unless you teleport into something really close by, and then it will still work. I really like this change. Now moving on, fixed an issue where you could become stuck in place after attempting to cast this ability or any of its morphs when the target was outside of your line of sight. This is nice, you know, part of that streak bug I think we've seen in game. Ball of Lightning. This morph now ranks up in duration of the summoned Ball of Lightning, which now lasts for 3 seconds, up from 2 seconds, and it adds 2 seconds of snare and immobilization immunity after teleporting. Sork was missing this. This is a massive deal, so it's still a stun, it's still going to be mobility, and it's snare and immobilize immunity. Holy man, this is going to be Mobility 101. The Ball of Lightning morph is going to be so good, and of course it absorbs projectiles. This is a really good skill for Sork, and it's not the incredibly strong offensive powerhouse that it used to be, but it's much better of just an all-around utility skill. So I like this change to Streak here, and the fact that it's undodgeable, unblockable is okay with this morph now, I think. Now taking a look at Streak, this is the one that's supposed to stun people. It now creates a cone behind you after casting that damages and stuns enemies inside of it. The length is now 17 meters with a 14-degree arc rather than being 4 by 15-meter rectangle. This means that the ability will require more precise aiming when attempting to land on top of an enemy, but less precise aiming when attempting to cast near an enemy. So this makes it essentially the counterpart to Ball of Lightning, which is going to stun your opponent at the end of it. It's now going to stun your opponent in a big radius right where you are, starting your kind of streak, at least from what I understand here, and then where you land, it's going to be a much smaller radius to stun. So this kind of reverses how the stun works, but you're still going to get a lot more AoE with this change. Honestly, this morph of Streak, like, this is the problem. We have an undodgeable, unblockable AoE stun. I have to get on the PTS to play around with the exact parameters of the new kind of detection radius of Streak, but the change from the 4 by 15 meter rectangle, I think, was definitely the right approach. We'll see how this cone works, but yeah, we'll just have to see how it works. This one I'm kind of up in the air about still. Lightning Splash increased the base duration of this ability and its morphs to 10 seconds from 8, just like everything else. The cost was increased to 5k magicka, just like everything else, and they reduced the damage per tick by 33%. Okay, so that one they normalized like they said they would. Surge, this ability and its morphs now grant Major Brutality and Sorcery at base. Beautiful. This is exactly what we want, opening up both morph options for both Magicka, Stamina, and of course Hybrid Sorcerer. Now taking a look at Templar, Piercing Javelin, they reduced the range on this guy by 22 meters to make sure that they follow kind of the range stuns that are all other 22 meter stuns as well. And the big change, they will now ignore the target's physical or spell resist to ensure they have a unique auxiliary effect. Binding Javelin and Aurora Javelin actually do quite a lot of damage. The Armor Pierce plus the addition of the Burning Light proc, this makes this an incredibly strong stun. Like, this could hit really hard. I'm using Fear on my Stamplar right now, but I might switch back to the Javelin because, yeah, man, that is beautiful. That's a lot of damage. Now, taking a look at Puncturing Strikes, this ability and its morphs will now snare the nearest enemy hit by 40% every time it deals damage, rather than snaring the nearest enemy hit by 70% on the final hit. So I actually like this change. It makes this an easier skill to use out of the gate, but less deadly if you get a full rotation off on someone, which is kind of good, I think. The ability and its morphs will now properly be considered direct damage rather than a hybrid of direct damage and damage over time. That's a big change. This essentially means that we will see a damage decrease in champion point campaigns and just champion point combat to our Puncturing Strikes and either morph of it. And that's just because it won't double dip in the CP anymore, which is huge. But yeah, I actually like this change because, well, if they need to make the damage higher, they can just buff it. But just the fact that it doesn't double dip in CP, it just makes it fit better into builds, to be honest. Just fits better into the builds that you'd be using it on, and it will no longer proc sets like Valken Scoria and stuff like that in the future. It still is doing it on the PTS right now, but they say they'll be fixing that. Now, Spear Shards, this ability in its morphs now lasts 10 seconds, up from 8. The base is now 5k, so that's been normalized as well. They reduced the damage on this guy by 53% though, so this one got a huge damage cut, more so than some other ones. It can proc Burning Light, but Blazing Spear got cut even more, so Burning Light might be the saving grace here. Now, Dawn's Wrath Backlash, this ability and its Morph's Final Explosion can now critically strike. Oh my gosh. So this is good and bad. They might have to nerf how strong this is. Adding the chance to crit. Wow. My Backlash or my Power of the Light on my Templar does so much damage already. This is a little scary. We'll see how that works out. This might be a bit too much burst for Plar here. Now, the heal over time from Purifying Light will now properly apply if your opponent removes the effect early as well, which is really nice too. Eclipse has got some changes, and I really like what they did with Eclipse here. Living Dark, the one that is the kind of defensive morph that you put on yourself, this one will now only snare targets for 60%, rather than immobilizing them, and they reduced the healing by 10%. So the healing reduction wasn't a massive amount, but I think they did have to reduce it by a bit. The change to snare from immobilize, I think, is the important change here. And the reason I say that's so important is because the immobilize in PvP prevents a lot of opponents from using things like gap closers and stuff like that. Immobilize in general is just a really harsh stun to spit out every 0.5 seconds. Just by putting a passive skill on yourself or a passive buff on yourself. So the immobilize here still gives you that same function that the snare here still gives you the same function that the immobilize kind of had, where if you're on a faster Templar build, or even doesn't matter if you're on a slower one, you can kind of break the group apart by using your mobility and snaring them, but it's not going to be that really harsh immobilize that we had before. And I think that's kind of important. I think that's what made Living Dark too strong defensively, was just the amount of CC compounded with the healing power made it very hard to deal with. Now, Unstable Core, they reduced the initial and secondary damage of this ability by 44% and the final hit by 25%. So we got a damage cut on this skill as well, but this is still going to apply the negative effects as your opponent attacks when the bubble is on them. Now, Solar Barrage has had an increase in duration to 8 seconds, up from 6, but they decreased the damage per tick by 30%. So overall, the damage is still going to be decreased over that 8-second period. Solar Barrage is quite a good skill still, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, they've slowly nerfed this more and more and more and more, so it's a much less than it used to be. We'll see how it looks on the live server. Templar's got a lot of AoE though, so this might be a good way to go. Sunfire, they fixed an issue where the major prophecy from this ability and its morphs would only occur if you dealt damage. This is so nice. So now you just have to flick out your ability. You don't even have to hit your target, and you'll get that buff. They increased the duration to 10 seconds, so normalizing it again. The cost increase again, and 60% damage reduction per tick. That's harsh, and yeah, especially on this particular skill, which you know, doesn't have any kind of really strong secondary effect. Damn, that is super harsh. That's too much, I think, but we'll see how it goes. Cleansing Ritual, Ritual of Retribution, reduce the damage per tick of this morph by approximately 33%. Okay, so just kind of following the normalization there. Now, the cost increase wasn't there too. That's because this was already a purge, so it was very expensive. Restoring Focus fixed an issue where this ability was unable to be cast while silenced. I love this because it is a Stam morph, so that's really nice. All right, now moving on to the Warden. We got the Betty Netch. Now, this is where ZeniMax has gone and given actually some more utility to Warden that they didn't have before. This ability and its morphs now grant both the Major Brutality and Sorcery at base, but no longer restore Magicka every second at base either. So the Major Brutality, Major Sorcery, a nice change again, so getting that class skill there. The abilities now remove one negative effect from you every 5 seconds. I'm not sure if you still get the negative effect removed on initial cast. I hope that you do, so you can still spam cast it, but this change, and for the Bull Netch as well, is a huge deal. It's a free skill, and it removes negative effects. So this gives Warden more options to reduce damage over time than it did in the previous patch, which is good, and I think they could definitely use it. However, the big issue here is that they nerf dots so hard, right? So, you know, a little confused, but I do like this change in general, but still a little confused. Moving on to the next bit here, they reduced the duration to 19 seconds from 22, but when you morph it, the final duration is now 25 seconds for both, and then the morph that you take will give you either Magicka back or the stamina restore functionality that it had before. So essentially, both of the netches are combined into the same thing, and then you get one that restores stamina or Magicka. I really like the change to the netch here, but with the changes to dots, honestly, man, like this is again where I said they could have kept maybe the dots at a little bit stronger than how they nerfed them in this coming patch, maybe just a 30% nerf, and then these changes here to things like Warden would be, well, they'd make a lot more sense, I think. Now, moving on to Dive, this ability has added a new functionality to help it stand alone as a spammable. They reduce the damage of these abilities by 10% and increase the cost to 2,700. But if you're 12 meters away or further from the target, you will now set them off balance if you hit them with Dive. This is really cool because it actually adds a potential class stun to Warden. And both morphs of this will set your opponent off balance. So it's a Magicka and stamina stun for Warden, which they desperately needed. Now, off balance, if you guys didn't know, you can do a partial or fully charged heavy attack if on an off balance opponent, and it will stun them. So this is really nice because it kind of adds that option. And I think it's something that Warden, you know, really needed. Now, the cutting dive morph will now also apply a bleed to the target for 7 seconds if they were set off balance, which can stack up to 7 times. I don't know what that means. I'll have to test this out myself on the PTS. But yeah, the stam morph looks really attractive. A ranged bleed. Very cool stuff. Warden bow builds incoming. Now, Swarm has also gotten some changes too. The cost of this ability and its morphs is now 2,970, so it's been increased as well. It will now apply minor vulnerability to the target for the duration of the dot. That's massive. Warden is getting minor vulnerability. Warden has just everything, dude. This is a huge buff to damage Warden. Big time. Big time. Minor vulnerability is huge, guys. That's like an armor debuff. This is pretty much an armor debuff plus a damage over time. Now, the damage has been decreased by 50%. Now, again, they did a huge nerf here, but it doesn't make sense because something like the Templar's Vampire Bane got a 60% damage reduction, but Swarm is going to get minor vulnerability but not take the same amount of damage reduction. So, again, I'm a little confused as to how they landed on these values. I mean, 50%, that just seems like a really conveniently whole rounded number, not really like something that was based on a lot of math, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like these changes here, they again, I just feel like kind of ZeniMax overshot it, and Swarm here looks like a really cool skill, man. But again, you know, if they were going to make this the way I think they should have done it, this should be a 40% damage reduction while all other dots get the 30% and then they get the minor vulnerability. And that's why it takes such a big damage reduction, because of the addition of the minor vulnerability. But, you know, we'll see what they do with dots. This is so weird and all over the place. Growing Swarm, this morph has been redesigned to a stam ability that deals bleed damage. The Swarm no longer spreads to nearby enemies upon completion, but instead deals damage to enemies in the area around the initial target at 25% of the initial target's coefficient. So it's a little bit of an AoE bleed with this morph here. Interesting. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on the changes here. So it actually adds a stamina dot as well. So a Warden stam build has a lot of dots now. Even as a ranged build, it has the cutting dive too. So I like the changes to Warden for build diversity. But again, these values are just all over the place for me. Now, Winter's Embrace, Arctic Wind, this ability and its morphs have regained the original function of Arctic Blast and deal frost damage in a 6-meter area around the caster and heal over time while the AoE persists. The damage scales off your max mag and spell damage, while the heal will still scale off your HP, which is good, so tank builds won't have insane damage from this ability. Now, the Arctic Blast morph, this no longer converts the ability into an awkward projectile stun. Instead, we get the permafrost stun. If you hit opponents 3 times in rapid succession with the ability, they're stunned, and this cannot be blocked. This is really cool, man. I like this change because now you add this stun just to Warden in general. I think this might be a little bit much to deal with, because if a Warden stays on top of you, they'll just constantly stun you over and over and over with this. But Magicka Warden doesn't have the gap closer, so You know, they'd have to go for a pretty funky build in order to play something like that. So I think this is really cool. For me personally, this is awesome for my Frost Warden, because this not only opens up more damage on the Frost Warden, but it gives us a really nice stun on top of that damage. So I like this change a lot here, and we'll get into the ultimate change too. Now, taking a look at Crystallized Shield, the morph now has a 500 millisecond internal cooldown on the damage return and Magicka refund. I think this is a good change. This is a very good skill. Adding the cooldown is kind of nice, just because then you can't just keep casting it every cast and utilize it way more effectively than you should have been able to. The Gripping Shards Winter Revenge morph decreased the damage per tick of this morph by approximately 33%. Yep, so this got the change to AoE damage that the dots got changed to. And then Sleet Storm, this morph no longer stuns enemies who are hit by multiple times, but instead increases the duration by up to 1 second per rank, up to 12 seconds. So you get a really long permafrost now instead of the stun, because the stun got moved over to our other frost skill. The snare is now 70% on permafrost again. Praise the heavens. The 70% snare on this ultimate is really what makes it such a good ult. Pair that with our new stun. This is going to be really cool. We have the old permafrost back, and then each tick of damage now applies the chilled status effect on enemies hit. So yeah, it has a chance to apply chilled because it's frost damage already, but just guaranteed chill application, which is really nice. So all in all, guys, like I said, I actually like the changes this patch. There's a lot of really good changes, but there are two big issues that I've kind of seen, actually three big issues that I've seen with the class changes, to be specific. The first big one is things like Streak, and I'll include Fossilize in here too, because they are unblockable, undodgeable stuns. How ZeniMax wants to deal with unblockable, undodgeable stuns and deal with counterplay to them, I believe they're going this approach of like mobility is kind of your counterplay to the unblockable, undodgeable. Your positioning should be good, etc. And I understand that approach, but with the changes to Streak, it's a little concerning because they could potentially have made it easier to AoE stun things around you with it. So I'm going to have to get on the PTS to try that out. The other big concern that I had, of course, is just the damage over time changes. You know, the dots needed to be nerfed or changed in some way, or more condition removal needed to be added to the game. But I think that the nerfs they did with this patch might have honestly been too big. Again, I'll have to test on the PTS to see what it feels like, and this is something we likely won't get a good idea of until we see it on the live server, because we'll see it in like 1vx and stuff like that. And then the third big thing, guys, is the cast times on ultimates. You know, I just want to see that go. I want to see ZeniMax take a different approach that feels better gameplay-wise for the ultimates instead of having this cast time added. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on these changes in the upcoming Dragonhold patch. Did you like them? Did you hate them? What did you or didn't like about them? And let me know in the comments below. Of course, this is only one of a 3-part video series where I'm going over all the changes in this patch. So if you guys want to check out all the new sets, or you guys want to check out the combat and weapon changes for the patch, you can of course check those videos out. Links to them will be in the description below. They should be there within a day after this video has been uploaded. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. I create regular ESO content, so be sure to stick around for more. If you guys are interested in sending in any clips for the top 5 or sending in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. If you guys are interested in live gameplay from me, a link to my Twitch down in the description below. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers, and they give me better ping to my favorite games. They're free to try for the first 30 days, and there is no credit card to sign up. So give it a shot if you guys want. No harm, no foul if it doesn't give you what you're looking for. I've had a lot of people ask me, do I use What the Fast? Yes, I do. It helps for me playing ESO. I get about 20 better ping or so to ESO depending on the day. So you guys can give them a shot. Like I said, it's totally free. And last but not least, if you guys really love the show and you want to help support it, you can always become a patron on Patreon. Without your help, I would not be able to do this job that I love so much. So thank you guys so much just for tuning in. Thank you guys for helping out if you choose to do so. And I hope to see you guys again next time. Looking forward to it. Have a great night, everybody.